Am I the jerk for asking my friend not to whip their private parts out in public? Context. I am a 30-year-old female. My boyfriend is a 30-year-old male. Our friends are Jake, a 30-year-old male, and Crystal, a 30-year-old female. We all went to the beach together last weekend. The conversation started at my place as we were packing for the beach. Jake said he was just going to change into his swimsuit after we got to the beach and people would get a free show. I casually mentioned that he could use a towel to cover up if he needed to change, as the beach was busy, not clothing optional, and there would be children there. Aside from this, my boyfriend and I did not want to see him expose himself either and made that known. He said that sounded dumb and that he could just quickly change and people could look away if they did not want to see. When we got to the beach, he was about to drop his shorts. I asked if he minded just using a towel. He first asked me to hold it up for him, which I did not want to do because I did not want to see anything, and it also would do nothing to cover him, as there were other people sitting behind and next to us. Both my boyfriend and I would not have been okay with me holding a towel for another man to change. It almost seemed like he was actively trying to make us feel uncomfortable to prove a point. I then showed him how to tie the towel around his waist as a way to change while still being covered. Growing up near a beach, that is how we always changed, and I thought that was just a normal thing to do. He got visibly annoyed by this and said it made changing too hard and took too long. Our other friend Crystal sided with him and said that it is not a big deal to change at the beach, and if people did not want to look, they could turn away. It had me second-guessing if I was being the unreasonable one by asking him to cover up. After our swim, when he wanted to switch back to regular shorts, he just did it out in the open, and we looked away. I did not say anything at that point because I did not want it to be a fight, but the whole thing made me and my boyfriend feel uncomfortable. I did not understand his pushback on wanting to just change out in the open. So, am I the antagonist for asking him to cover up while changing at the beach? I think you are not in the wrong here. It sounds like he just wanted an excuse to expose himself and get people to look at him. There are a lot of jerks around like that. Jumping through so many hoops just to be naked in public is ridiculous, especially since no one wants to see a penis at the beach or anywhere else in public. If this was in the US, he's lucky no one called the police to report a nude man on a public beach. Am I the jerk for demanding that my parents not include my adopted siblings in our dinner plans for my birthday? 5 years ago, my parents adopted 2 of my siblings. I will call them Cassandra, who is 17 years old and female, and Layla, who is 15 years old and female. 2 years ago, Luku, who is 2 years old and male, their biological younger brother and the absolute light of my life, was born and surrendered, so he was placed with us too. Since they were adopted as preteens, a major priority for my parents was bonding with them 2-on-3. They go to a lot of bonding activities. They are constantly bouncing between adoption therapy and family therapy, which feels weird because I am also part of the family. I am only included once in a while, usually to be told I need to be less of a show-off. They also take them out after individual therapy, which I fully support and would never admit to being jealous of in real life, but I am jealous of it. I had 6 bouts over the summer, and it was a miracle that they attended too. They did not include the last fight or the family day. At least come for the catharsis of seeing me get struck with a sword. Sometimes, circumstances demand that I am there, and I moved my schedule to make this happen more often. At first, they let me hang to the side, but then they asked that I step back so I am not engaging with whatever they are doing with my sisters because the bonding activities are supposed to be for them. Last night, I told my parents that I wanted them to do things with me alone. I said that they were wildly favoring my siblings over me, and I wanted to have dinner on my birthday with only them. They did not take it well and threatened to send me to therapy. We ate in silence for a few minutes. I tried to tell them I won the season-long bracket, and they emphasized how much it was not a time to be bragging or doing anything except apologizing. They said my siblings are traumatized and in need of more support. They also accused me of believing my siblings are not real just because I wanted to have some time with my parents where it wasn't about my siblings. After dinner, Layla said she thought it was a good idea and suggested we go out as a family, but pay attention to me in particular for the whole week. That sounds incredibly embarrassing, but amazing. I would adore that, especially since I want to hang out with my sisters more anyway. Cassandra, though, pulled me aside and said that I had always been spoiled, but that this was like a healthy man demanding stitches from a poorly stocked first aid kit because everyone else had them, and he wanted to feel special. She said I should take a step back and realize that that was an awful thing to ask. I am split between wanting to run away so my family doesn't have to deal with me and sinking into the comfort of self-pity. I just want my own parents, or my own siblings, or somebody to genuinely care about how I feel or be glad when I do something well. You did the right thing. Requesting one birthday dinner with just your parents to chat is not a rude thing to ask. Your needs and feelings matter too, and it's perfectly okay to want some acknowledgement. It speaks a lot to your character that you talk about this without resentment, just wanting your parents to be present in your life. The fact that even Layla agrees with you should be eye-opening enough for your parents, and it was unfair of Cassandra to call you a spoiled jerk when you're not asking for much at all. Am I the jerk for refusing to tell my siblings I'm being adopted? My siblings, who are 11-year-old females, 10-year-old males, and 8-year-old females, and I, a 15-year-old male, are in foster care. Our parent used me as a babysitter from a very young age, starting when I was 6 years old with my siblings. It got worse when our father went to prison. Our mother was almost always in her bed and refused to leave it, or she would leave the house and come back whenever she felt like it. 3 years ago, I told a teacher about it, and she reported it to Child Protective Services, CPS. They tried to get our mother to step up, but she did not want to. When we were taken, my siblings got very clingy and refused to give me any space. I asked if we could be separated, but I was told we needed each other. I ended up running away from the foster home we were placed in together and ran away again when I was brought back. The social worker, who is still the social worker we have now, was upset that I would not give it time and stay with that family. They were the only people who would take all 4 of us together. The social worker's boss got involved after I left for the 3rd time and insisted I should be separated from them if I was not going to stay. However, my social worker insisted on mandatory bi-weekly visits. I moved to a few different foster families until I met the people I now think of as my parents. I was 13 years old when I met them. They are the best parental figures I have ever had, and by far the best foster parents I have had in 3 years. We got very close. I started calling them mom and dad nicknames, and I talked to them about the stress I feel when I see my siblings. They advocated for me to no longer have those bi-weekly visits, but the social worker overruled them. She insists that one day I will regret being separated from them and that having some contact is important. A second social worker is now involved in our case, or with me at least, and I am now eligible for adoption. My foster parents and I talked, and I told them I would love for them to be my parents for real. My original social worker is not too happy, but she cannot stop it now. She tried talking me out of it and was reprimanded when I told the other social worker. My original social worker is refusing to tell my siblings that I am being adopted, and she said I need to tell them and that she will insist upon it. I told her she cannot make me tell them, and I am not dealing with the anger they will have. My siblings are already angry. I ran away until we were separated. They are also still very clingy and intrusive in my personal space. I know telling them I am being adopted will make it worse, and I do not want to sit through 4 hours of that. My social worker told me to stop being so stubborn and cruel and to think about my siblings above myself. My foster parents reported her to the other social worker. Am I the antagonist? Your actions were justified. Your caseworker is still trying to hold you responsible for their emotional well-being, which isn't fair to any of you. The responsibility for helping them process this news should not be forced onto a child. It should be handled by a therapist or a responsible adult. You deserve to be happy and to be parented instead of being the parent for what is left of your childhood. The caseworker probably thought keeping you with your siblings would be better for their mental health, but it shouldn't be at the expense of yours. Am I the jerk for telling my mom I won't tell her if anything happens to me? I am a 34-year-old male. My parents tend to be annoyingly persistent when they think they know what is best for me. I know it comes from a good place, but it is difficult to have conversations with them because if I express a desire to buy or do anything, they do not simply listen or give an opinion. They actively push what they want onto me. For example, I tell my dad I am looking into getting a new car and considered car A. He asks why I do not look into car B. I explicitly tell him why car B is expensive and does not suit my lifestyle. But for the next few months, he asks at least once a week if I have decided on a new car and suggests I look into car B again. My mom, who I know is not into cars, will randomly ask me to look into car B. Suddenly, my mom's friend from her karaoke group, whom I have never met, is suggesting I look into car B. Last year, I hit a breaking point. I was going on a trip, and my parents asked if I wanted a new travel bag. I said my current one is fine. They got a new bag anyway and kept asking me if I wanted a new bag. Apparently, this new bag will be much better, even though they have seen my old bag maybe once. After the 4th or 5th time, I told them on WhatsApp to stop asking me if I need a new bag. I had repeatedly said I had a perfectly good bag that is less than a year old, has only been used a few times, and I do not think I need a new bag. I do not like being asked about it repeatedly. The night before the trip, they asked again. I looked at the new bag and it was smaller than my current bag, so I could not even fit everything I wanted in it. I went on a long rant about how I disliked how much they try to push what they want onto me. I explained that sometimes what they think is right for me is not what I think is right for myself. When I tell them explicitly why I pick car A over car B and they continue to push car B, it feels like they are not listening to me or respecting my decisions. When they tell me that the bag they got will be better than my current bag that they have barely seen, it is like they think I do not know how to buy things for myself. They acknowledged this and said they would try to do better. Flash forward to a couple of days ago. I told the family chat that I found a huge spider in my car that disappeared when I tried to get rid of it, so it might still be in the car. It was meant to be a funny story. My mom sent an article on all natural spider repellents and asked if I wanted her to make one. I said no. The next day, I stopped by my parents' house and before I left, my mom insisted I hang this bag of herbs in my car to repel spiders. I told her I did not want it. After she asked 3 more times, I took it and said something like, "Next time something happens, I'm just not going to tell you in Chinese." She said fine, took the bag back and was visibly annoyed. Was this a harsh reaction? My partner said I am not the antagonist. but my sister said it might have been a bit of an extreme response. If they're that obnoxious and overbearing, just keep conversations limited to the weather and food. The natural consequence of their behavior is that you don't want to share things anymore. This is not a punishment, but simply the outcome of them pushing you over and over. Setting this boundary firmly and consistently is key, and make sure your siblings know not to share your information with them either. Am I the jerk for yelling at my nephew after he damaged and hid the doll that my deceased friend gifted me? I, a 20-year-old female and the youngest of 6 siblings. This story is about my oldest sister, Natalie, who is a 33-year-old female, and her child. Natalie has 3 children, a 12-year-old male, a 10-year-old male, and a 5-year-old female. This concerns the 12-year-old, whom I will call Tom, not his real name. When I was in the 7th grade, one of my best friends gifted me a doll that she had gotten in South Korea. It was a beautiful doll with long hair, pretty eyes, a green dress, and a green bonnet. Sadly, during my senior year of high school, my friend died of a fentanyl overdose. I spent a long time crying and even skipped a week of school. I have always considered the doll very precious, as it's one of the only things I have left from my friend. In the present, I live with 2 roommates, but both of them were out with other friends when my sister, nephews, and niece came over. Natalie had brought the kids over to catch up and talk. While Natalie and I talked, I gave the kids a few games to keep them entertained. As they were getting ready to leave, I went to the bathroom. I was on my period, so I changed my pad. When I opened the trash can to throw the used pad away, I was horrified to find the doll in the trash can. Her bonnet had been ripped off, along with about half of the hair. One of the arms had been torn off, and there were rips on the left side of the dress. Someone had also drawn over one of the eyes with a black marker. I screamed, and Natalie came over to see what was wrong since they hadn't left yet. I grabbed the doll, looked at the kids, and yelled, "Who did this?" There was a moment of silence before Tom admitted it was him. He said it was just supposed to be a prank. I got angrier than I had been in a really long time. I yelled, asking Tom if he knew how much the doll meant to me and that pranks are supposed to be funny. He teared up and Natalie yelled louder over me, saying Tom is just a kid and doesn't know better. I stopped yelling just to breathe and Natalie said, "It's just a doll, get over it." I yelled at her to get out. She was offended and said I was overreacting over a doll and being overly sensitive. She took her kids and left. Did I overreact over a doll? Please, I really need an opinion. In my opinion, you have done nothing wrong here. Your sister and her children were guests in your home, and she had an obligation to control her children. Her failure to do so is a clear sign of disrespect for your space. Whether or not the doll had sentimental value, it's unacceptable for her child to destroy your property, and she should definitely pay to have it repaired. A 12-year-old is old enough to understand right from wrong, and your sister needs to step up as a parent. Am I the jerk for trying to improve my roommate's well-being? I, a 25-year-old male, am currently sharing a house with a friend, a 21-year-old male. Let's call him Oscar. We share the house with a few more people to help cover expenses. Most of my roommates are slightly younger than me and, to my knowledge, are enrolled in a college or university. Since I have plenty of time off work, I try to keep the house in order, including chores and rent, when they are busy with their studies. We are all pretty close after having lived together for a while, so I often check in with everyone to see how they are doing. Oscar has always been a bit shy, and I consider myself to be the closest to him out of the rest of our roommates. I even helped him open up to everyone when we all first started living here a little over a year ago. From what I have seen, Oscar seems to struggle a lot with his depression. I worry for him and try to help him out the best I can because he is a friend who I care about deeply. I personally do morning workouts, and Oscar usually joins me if he does not have classes that day. I used to be the one encouraging him to do so at first, but now he joins voluntarily. I also generally just give him words of advice and encouragement, and it always seems to put him in a better mood whenever he is feeling down. For the past month, it even felt like he had improved mentally. At least, that is what I thought. I recently accidentally caught him talking with another one of our roommates, a 19-year-old female, let's call her Fatima, about how I approach his depressive behavior. I am not the biggest fan of their friendship. Fatima is a nice person, but it often feels like she encourages Oscar's negative thoughts, preys into his feelings, or enables his behavior. What I overheard was that Oscar tried to be in a good mood around me, but felt like he could not meet my expectations, and it made him feel even worse about himself. Fatima agreed with Oscar and told him he could vent about his depression to her. It was as if Oscar had not gotten better at all. The two laughed a lot together in their conversation. Oscar had never smiled like that with me. I know it is not my job to make him happy, but seeing them together did hurt a bit. I am upset that my words could not reach Oscar in a way that genuinely made him happier. I never expected anything from him. All I wanted was for him to feel better. Though, with what I know now, I think my efforts might have ended up being in vain. So, am I the jerk? Obviously you mean well, but quite often, people who are depressed or going through something don't want help or words of encouragement that may seem patronizing. Try listening and lending a sympathetic ear, and just tell Oscar that if he's looking for an opinion or advice, you can try to give it. And how would you characterize what you're doing? It sounds like she's available to listen, and you're jealous. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.